there are some accommodations that we can make. So I'll show you those too. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. If you have questions, just hop in and I will stop. So bear with me here. I'm going to switch out my screen. So you should be able to see my screen. It has an older picture of me before my COVID beard. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how you can reach me. Feel free to email me. This number I check periodically, but it's at my desk in the building. So email me if you have questions. So again, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what Read Live is, and then I'll do the demo. So Read Live is developed by Read Naturally. Read Naturally has been around for about 30 years, founded by a special ed teacher in the Twin Cities. And it is the latest version of this reading intervention program that's been around ever since, Blackline, mimeograph, cassette tapes, etc. But now it's a web-based application. We currently have 2 programs in there, and we will continue to add those programs throughout this year and next year. But right now we have Read Naturally Live and Word Warm-Ups Live. And this is a great, as I said, intervention primarily suited for RTI tiers 2 and 3. It's web-based, and you can use it on a variety of devices. If you are using Google for education, we have an option to do Google login, which means that your students would not have to type in their credentials every time they want to use the program. So there is a way for Joelle to turn that on. And then all you'd need to do is provide your kiddos with a link. They can just click on the link and they automatically log themselves in through single sign-on. I'll talk about distance learning features in a little bit, but we just added some and we will continue to add those in the next couple months. The next release sometime in October will also allow kids to record themselves reading and then send the teacher the recording within the program so that you can do the timing asynchronously. And again, I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. We have a new program called Word Warm-Ups Live, which is a phonics intervention for low-level single-syllable phonics words. And again, I'll talk about that. I'll spend most of my time talking about Read Naturally Live, which is the program that Joel's most familiar with. And that's our fluency intervention. It's suitable for first grade through high school. All of the content is high-interest nonfiction text. There are some accommodations for native Spanish speakers, and by that I mean there's audio instructions in Spanish, and you can also turn on a Spanish read-along for your Spanish speaking kids. So that means they can see the text in Spanish and listen to a Spanish speaking narrator read that text first before they move to the English version of the text. You have 23 different reading levels to allow you for differentiation. Each of those levels has 24 passages or lessons. It's customizable. There are reports to help you track progress. And as I said, there are some accommodations built in for distance learning. Word Warm-Ups Live is the new program that we added earlier in the summer. It's for students who need additional support with phonics. Even though we do have a Phonics series in Read Naturally Live, this digs deeper into the phonics piece. It provides very explicit and systematic instruction in common phonics patterns. What we have released recently is level 1 of 3 separate levels, and level 1 consists of single syllable phonics patterns. In the next school year, we'll add levels 2 and 3, which focus on multisyllabic syllables, multisyllabic phonics patterns. So since I'm not going to spend a ton of time on Word Warm-Ups Live, I do want to give you an overview of it. So level 1 is appropriate for 1st through 8th grade students needing support with phonics skills in the 1st and 2nd grade range. So pretty low-level kids, it might be suitable for your population. And so in that case, you may want to also incorporate about 20 minutes a day for Word Warm-Ups Live in addition to Read Naturally Live, but that's totally up to you. It's optional. Obviously, you can use either one or both of these programs. I'll kind of run through these. So there are 69 exercises in 9 separate sections. Each of the sections focuses on a different phonics pattern. We start with letter sounds and we move through the vowels, blends, consonant sounds, etc. Within each of the sections, there are 5 separate types of exercises, including word list lessons, stories that incorporate those phonics patterns, etc. So let's talk about the strategy a little bit, and then I'm going to demonstrate it when I do the lesson. So within the research-based Read Naturally strategy, you have 3 components: teacher modeling, where students will read along with a fluent reader, fluent narrator, and model their expressiveness, their pace, and their accuracy, and they'll do that several times. Then they'll read the passage multiple times without the support of the narrator, until they reach a particular goal that the teacher has set for the student. And the goal would be the number of words that they can read correctly per minute, as well as understanding what they are reading. Obviously, the goal of this is comprehension. And then finally, progress monitoring. That simply means that while you have access to data and reports on students' progress, students can monitor their own progress through visual cues and audio cues within the program. We have a whole section on the Read Naturally strategy and the research behind it. So if you're curious or interested, you can just go to our website, readnaturally.com, to view that. The curricula that's available to you within Read Naturally Live, as I said, consists of 23 separate reading levels. The Sequence Series is our most commonly used set of reading levels, and as you can see, it moves from level 1 through level 8, bumping up in half-grade reading level increments. So these are reading levels. In other words, you may have a 7th grader, but you have determined that they fit most appropriate in a level 2, for example. And so they would work in a level 2 and then continue to work in the program, gradually moving up the levels until they are reading at an appropriate rate and comprehending what they are reading. The Phonics Series, as you can see, covers roughly a 1st through 3rd grade reading level. And those are distinct because they also support phonics within the context of the fluency instruction. So it's focusing on fluency, but there's a phonics support built in. Distinct from Word Warm-Ups Live, which is exclusively focusing on phonics and is a separate program. And then finally, idioms, useful again for English language learners who would benefit from exposure to American language idioms. And again, it's kind of a subset in terms of reading levels. It moves from level 3 to right before level 5 in terms of reading ability. So setting up workspace and schedule, this is primarily related to in-classroom work, obviously. So if you're in a classroom, you can use it in a variety of settings. But again, keep in mind that students can also work at home with your support and, if possible, parental support. There's a way for you to add a parent as a support assistant within the program as well. But you have a variety of ways of structuring your day. We do recommend that you have smaller groups, not large groups, when using the program. And obviously, if you're doing it in a distance learning setup, your groups would probably need to be even smaller just because of the challenges involved in that kind of instruction. We recommend 30 minutes per session, 3 to 5 days a week. Obviously, if you can't fit that in, then you do it as much as you can. At a minimum, I would say if you can do it at least 20 minutes per session, if possible. Okay, shortly I'm going to run into my demo, but I do want to just cover 3 steps to start. These are what most people will need to do, most teachers would need to do when getting their students up and running. It's pretty simple. I will demonstrate it for you, but you're going to add students into the program. They may already have been added, so Joel might have already added them by importing them. Otherwise, teachers can add their own students just by entering in some basic information. Then you would place the students. In other words, you would determine their starting reading level within Read Naturally Live and assign them a goal. And the goal, again, is words correct per minute. And then finally, you would need to train your students on how to use the program. So I want to spend a little bit of time on describing what placement means. We have a formula for placement. So we do recommend or suggest that you not just guess at this, but you're going to go through a process of estimating the reading level initially, giving them a test within Read Naturally Live, which involves having the student read for 1 minute and count their errors, calculating the score of words correct per minute, determining whether the tested level is appropriate, and then if not, continuing to test. And again, all of these steps are primarily performed by the software program itself. You are simply monitoring that test. And this just gives you a high-level overview of what the program is doing. And then for training students, we have a whole host of resources available to you within our website, including a video series for students to watch with or without teacher support during that time that they're watching those videos. And then if you want to get even more interactive, we have a lesson plan that you can use to teach your kids step by step how to use the program. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Nope. Okay. I will continue. Okay, so one of the other things that we provide for kids and also to parents is this steps poster, which you can download as a PDF file from our website. It basically shows you and them the steps that they have to complete within a lesson. We have this poster in both English and Spanish. I don't know what your population, your ESL population, what their language is, primary languages. We currently only support Spanish, but in the future, we hope to add more languages into the support. So these are the steps that I'm going to demonstrate for you, working through a lesson. Each of the steps supports a different skill. For example, keyword supports vocabulary, prediction, read, tell, and quiz support comprehension, etc. So I'm going to move into my actual demo. And you should be able to see my Read Live account home screen. And so this is what you would see when you first get started. This is where everyone would go to, whether you're using a computer or a Chromebook. If you want to use iPads, you would need to download a free iPad app from the iTunes store that allows students to use the program on an iPad.
Do any of your
Otherwise,
kids have iPads? Okay, good.
okay.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. So they just need the device. They need an internet connection and preferably a set of earbuds or headphones. So I'm going to log in as a as a teacher, as a staff member. So you'll have your own unique account ID and account credentials. The orientation and resources page will give you some basic information, basically the things that I've just mentioned: adding students, placing students, and preparing students. And then the navigation tools in the upper left bring you to the different tiles, which are mirrored in the menu. So student setup is where you add students or view your student roster easily. And you can see last login date, who their lead teacher is, what grade they're in, etc. Adding a student is pretty simple. Again, if they're not already imported, you complete this form. To license them, you simply select yes, and then you must select a lead teacher. The lead teacher is the individual that's going to be primarily responsible for monitoring that student's progress in the program. If you want to provide them with access to Word warm-ups live, you just click on that little checkbox, and that gives them access not just to Read Naturally Live, but also to this new program for phonics instruction. And then if you do have an email address for a parent with whom you want to maintain communication, I would encourage you to enter that here so that you can email progress reports and letters directly to the parent from Read Naturally Live. Once you've added the student into the program, you must go to a different screen to place them. So you add students here, and you place them in the Read Naturally Live screen. So this will be a subset of the students that were in the previous screen. These are the students for whom I am the lead teacher. Okay, so the previous screen showed me all the students in the school. This shows me my students, my group of students. And this is where I do things or perform tasks that are specific to Read Naturally Live. So for example, placement, but this is also where you can change reading levels and goals by clicking on Edit. So you can manually assign series levels and goals. Or you can run through the automated placement test, which I'll show you in a moment. You can print out any of the stories. It'll generate them as PDF files, which you can save or print. You can, as I said, if you do have an email address for a parent, you can email them from this button. And you can also customize the program for each student. I mentioned that you can add a Spanish read-along. So if I click on Bernice's checkbox here and click Change Story Options, that lets me add a Spanish read-along. It lets me change the number of read-alongs, turn on or off certain steps, etc. I won't go into all the reasons why you may choose to do these, but if you have questions about it, we can either do another webinar that goes into more detail on all these options, or I can direct you to more documentation on our website. But I just want to point out to you that it is very customizable so that you can adjust it depending on each individual student's needs. But let me demonstrate for you the placement test. So you're going to place each student individually by having them read from a sample passage in one of the sequenced series levels. So I'm going to click on Place for Bernice. If you are sitting together in a classroom in normal times, you would sit next to each other. But you can also do this via screen sharing in the same way that I'm doing this now with you. So you can just come to the placement screen, set up a screen share, and run through this test with them through Google Meet. So let's say I have Bernice on a Zoom call or a Google Meet. I'm going to have her read from a passage in level 3.5 because that's what my guesstimate is of her reading ability. I'll click Next. And then when she's ready to begin reading, I'll click on the Start Timing button. She will read from the passage. You can also, by the way, print out these passages or generate them out as PDF files. If you want to send Bernice an attachment of a PDF file or mail it home, if that's how you want to do it, really depends on how you want to manage this. But while she's reading from the screen, you're going to be noting the number of words that she missed. We don't really care which words that she missed at this point. We're just going to count the number of words that she missed. And then after the 1 minute is up, we'll click on the last word that she read correctly, enter in the number of missed words, and then the program will make a recommendation based on her words correct per minute score. That score is our identifier for whether this particular level is appropriate for her reading ability. If it is, we'll keep her in this level.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
If it's appropriate, we'll keep her here. Otherwise, we'll have to test her again in a more or less difficult passage. So I clicked on the word microscope. Let's say she mispronounced or skipped 5 words. Here's her results, and here's the recommendation on the right side. If her score was not appropriate for this level, it would say continue testing. Otherwise, it says stop testing and choose a series. And again, sequence series is what most people would choose most of the time. Idioms would be for students who would benefit from exposure to American language idioms. And then the Phonics series, if it would have appeared, would be for students who need not only fluency instruction, but phonics support as well.
Ben, does that Idiom series, I know that I'm very familiar with the sequence series.
Yeah.
Does the Idiom series also offer the same types of questions and the opportunity to do the prediction? I'm not familiar with, okay.
The Idiom series is exactly the same as the sequence series, except for the content. So in terms of the steps, they're exactly the same.
Okay.
But the content focuses on 3 to 4 idioms. And then you'll see those peppered throughout in the vocabulary, in the story itself, and in the quiz questions. So it's really just exposure to that type of language. But the steps and the instruction are exactly the same as sequenced.
Okay. So you guys, so without a doubt, I'm not telling you what to do. They're your students, and you guys are amazing instructors. But the Idiom series sounds pretty like spot on for your students.
Is it just idioms or is it all figurative language?
It's primarily idioms.
Okay.
Yeah. And also I should say that keep in mind that the Idiom series is a shorter band or a smaller band. It only goes from level 3.0 through 4.5. So 3, 3, 5, 4, 4, 5. So if they don't fit in that band of reading levels, then you should not place them in there, right? So give primacy to whatever the program, the placement program is recommending. So if you don't see idioms in this list, don't subvert that and choose an idioms level anyway, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if it appears here, then yes, you have the option. If it doesn't appear here, don't override that recommendation.
And that's true on all of it, right, Ben?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And so now Bernice has been placed, and you can see her series level and goal is automatically entered into her record. I can show you what an idioms set of passages looks like. So again, keep in mind that you can print out any of the stories. So you can see here, so this focuses on tough times, which includes behind the 8 ball, go into a hole, etc. So, and again, the quiz questions are going to focus primarily on those idioms. Does that give you a better sense of what they look like?
It hasn't loaded your next screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
There you go.
There we go. Does that make sense? So in any case, you guys can take a look at this. When you log in, just print out the passages and you can get a feel for the text difficulty and what the focus of the content will be. Okay. Thanks for letting me know about that. It's like definitely having to juggle, you know, 3 or 4 screens when you're sharing the video camera. You know, I do webinars constantly, and for a teacher to have to do this with a group of students every day, you gotta appreciate it. Appreciate the effort, because it's not easy. Okay.
I'm here to do a quick overview. Perhaps that's super quick.
All right, so I'm going to go back to my home screen here. And again, we iterate that you add the students, you place the students, and once students are added, you will train them using that video series that I mentioned earlier. And what I'm going to do is walk through the steps of the program and kind of show you what students would do to give you context for when you do end up training your own kids. So when kids log in, they go back to the main home screen. They click on the student button, and then they will need their own credentials. Again, if you do have Google for Education, Google Classroom, etc., you can create a Google login for them using Read Live.
Please select a story.
So 24 passages in a level. They see 12 at a time. They can move between the 2 different sets of 12 stories with teachers' assistance. Otherwise, after they've completed 12, it rolls over to the next 12 automatically. There's Spanish and English instructions in audio.
Por favor, seleccione una historia.
And up at the top, you can see their level and goal. This is where they would log out. There's a special teacher menu that if a teacher is available, he or she can enter in their password credentials and have access to more teacher functionality when the student is logged in. And then if they've been assigned access to Word Warm-Ups Live, they can move back and forth on their own between those 2 programs. So we don't restrict them. Basically, if you say they can work in Word Warm-Ups Live, they can move automatically between the 2. And this is what one screen in Word Warm-Ups Live would look like.
Look at the words. All the words follow the same pattern. Each word has only one vowel, E, followed by at least one consonant. So, in each word, the vowel E says its short sound, eh.
Click each word. Quietly sound out and then read the word with the audio.
So there are a number of lessons in each section, number of exercises. And even as in this case, even if a student is not in the Phonics Series in Read Naturally Live, you can also still assign them some phonics instruction using Word Warm-Ups Live.
Please select a story.
So students work mostly independently. When they're ready to begin, they'll click on the story that they want to work in or the lesson they want to complete.
Zebras.
Are you ready to start this story? Click each key word to learn the word and what it means.
So you can see up at the top the steps that I showed you earlier in the poster. These are the sequence series steps as well as the idioms steps. The phonics steps are a little bit different. I'll talk about that later. So for keywords, students have to click on each of these 4 keywords, listen to them being read aloud with their definitions, and only after they've done that will the next button be visible for moving forward to the next screen.
Pattern. A pattern is a set of things, like colors, shapes, lines, or sounds, that is repeated.
So all of these words will appear in the passage that they are going to be reading shortly.
Recognize. Recognize means to know what something is after seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, or tasting it. Alex knows Mom is baking cookies because he can recognize the smell coming from the kitchen.
They'll also be able to access these words again in the read-along step and the quiz step, where they'll see the words embedded into the story text, where they'll also see additional keywords, another 10 or so keywords that they can explore.
Species. Species are groups of plants or animals that are alike in certain ways. Mammals include many species, such as lions, giraffes, and humans.
So note that after I click zoologists, I'll be able to click next to move forward.
Zoologists. Zoologists are people who study animals.
Click a word again, or click Next to continue. Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Write a prediction about the story. Then, click Next to continue.
So we asked them to write a prediction about what they think the story is about, based on their prior knowledge of the subject matter, the title, the picture, and 1 or more of the keywords. They can always click back to review keywords. They have to type something into the box before they can move forward. They have 2 minutes to complete this step. After 2 minutes, they can't type anymore and they have to go forward. You can change the amount of time that they have. So if you feel like some students need more time, you can adjust that in story options. And you can also turn this step off if you want to focus more on the reading piece as opposed to the writing piece.
Play Wordtastic while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you.
So by default, there are 2 times when an adult needs to be present with the student to do an activity, to do a timing. One of those is cold timing. And as you can see, visible on the screen are red bars at the top and the bottom and a yellow button that says conduct. Conduct cold timing. Later it'll say conduct past activities. Whenever that happens, the student is waiting for someone to intervene and move them forward. While they are waiting, in this case, they can play this vocabulary game called Wordtastic, which is a synonym and antonym word matching game. If you are doing distance learning or remote instruction, you have several options. One, as I said earlier, you can have parents be added into the system as what we call read live assistants, and then parents can intervene and move students forward, listen to them read, etc. Or you can set it up so that you are logging in as the student and sharing your screen with them. We have a new login as button that if the student is ready for you to work with them, you can log them out and log yourself into the program as if you were them, and then share the screen with them via Zoom or Google Meet. And then finally, for cold timing, you can set it up so that students can perform this timing on their own without supervision of an adult. So several options there. So I'll show you what this looks like. So if you just select a response, if it's correct, you get points. If it's incorrect, the answer is provided, and you can always click on words.
Rubbish. Vacancy.
Not to hear their definitions, but at least to hear how they are pronounced. When an adult is available, again, either a parent assistant or a teacher via Zoom or Google Meet. They'll enter in their password.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
So we're going to conduct this timing. We're going to listen to the student read. When they're ready, we'll click on the Start Timing button. There's a reading guide. That's the yellow bar that you can turn on or off that follows the cursor. As students are reading, when they mispronounce a word or skip a word or get stuck on a word, that word should be identified with a mouse click.
Unique. Purposes. Recognize.
And as you can see, when I'm clicking on these words, they're underlined, they're spoken aloud for reinforcement, and then we're also going to keep track of those words so that you can review them with the student later if you wish, or you can just see what kinds of words the student is getting stuck on. So we're going to subtract those words from the score, and that'll provide us with a words correct per minute score as our cold timing score. So that's what we'll measure students' progress against. The student will see the score underneath the picture of the zebra, and then we'll also see it displayed in a graph.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded. Click Next to continue.
So I clicked on the last word read. I click Next.
Look at how many words you read correctly per minute. Click Next to continue.
So again, they see their cold timing score compared to their goal. Remember, goal was set during placement.
Click Start Read Along to read along, or click Next to continue.
The read along is that teacher modeling piece I mentioned earlier. That's part of the Read Naturally strategy. Students read along with the narrator. Typically, they do that 3 times. So they would read the entire passage from start to finish 3 times before they can move on to the next step. But I've changed that so that we don't have to sit through that for our demo. And again, you can do that in the story options screen. Students are doing this independently. They'll read along quietly, but actively with their lips moving and their vocal cords vibrating. This is also the place where you can turn on that Spanish read along. So if Spanish read along had been turned on, I would have seen Spanish text and the Spanish speaking narrator reading the text to me. It's a multi-sensory activity, so students will see and hear and also, again, actively participate in the reading process.
Most people know that zebras are wild horses with stripes and that they live in Africa. But did you know that of all the zebras in the world, no 2 look exactly alike?
Click Start Read Along to read along again.
In between each read along, students can explore the vocabulary. We saw some of these earlier, like zoologists and species, and some of these are new, like camouflage.
Camouflage. Camouflage is a way of hiding something by making it look like the things around it.
Once they're done with the read along, they go to practice.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
So practice is similar to cold timing in that they can click on difficult words to practice reading them aloud in preparation for the pass step.
Pattern. Purposes. Confuse.
The objective here is simply to read the passage multiple times, repeated reading until mastery, so that only when they reach their goal will they be allowed to move to the quiz and retell steps. This is a very important part of the strategy. It's the only step that you can't turn off in the program. They have to do the practice step. We typically expect students to practice between 3 to 10 times typically. So students are going to be in here for a while. one of the longer steps. If students are in here for only a short time and reaching their goal right away,
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
if they're reaching their goal right away, it means that the story is probably too easy for them, or the level is too easy for them, and you may want to kind of adjust the level or the goal.
You've reached your goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue. Click the best answer, and then click Next.
So the quiz and the retell are how we measure comprehension in the sequenced and the idioms series. So the quiz consists of multiple choice and short answer. So that sound boop boop means I've answered that question incorrectly. And that casino sound means I've answered it correctly. So they get audio feedback right away. They have access to the text and the vocabulary. And each of the quiz questions will focus on a very specific comprehension skill, such as main story idea, inference, vocabulary, etc. There's also open-ended questions they have to type an answer into, and which you will evaluate during the pass step. There's sorting and matching. The same kinds of questions or types of questions they may see in a standardized test. All of these words are vocabulary words, which is why we want to encourage students to explore those vocab words as often as possible.
Retell or summarize the story in your own words. Click Review Story if you want to read the story again.
So for the retell, students write a response in their own words about what they think the story was about. If they want to remind themselves about the story, they click Review Story, but can't have access to the text while they're typing. What they type is subjective. It's really up to the teacher to evaluate them based on their own standards, although we do have some suggestions out on our website if you need them. In the Phonics series, we don't have a retell. Instead, a word list that students have to practice that, again, supports the phonics pattern that particular story revolves around.
Now you're ready to pass. Read the story and play Wordtastic until your teacher comes to pass you on this story. Click Start Timing and begin reading.
So this is the other place where an adult is needed. This is not optional. Cold timing is optional. As I said, you can make that student independent. But for past activities, a student needs someone there to monitor them, to move them forward. So again, you can use the Login As button or have a parent assistant to assist in that process. You'll time them for 1 minute, as we've been doing for the placement, for the cold timing, for the practice. They'll be reading from the screen. You can, again, download and or print a PDF version of the text if you want to have them read from there while you are doing the monitoring and the grading. You're listening for those stop, stumble, skip words. After 1 minute is up, as before, you'll click on the last word they read correctly. And then for the first time, you'll also be evaluating their expression. We have a rubric built into the screen that I'll show you. So students have to read at the rate assigned during placement. They have to read accurately with 3 or fewer words, and they have to read expressively. Those are the 3 hallmarks of fluency. And in addition, they have to have demonstrated their comprehension via the quiz and the retell. So 5 requirements for passing.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So this student read 125 words, but they missed 3 words. And here's the rubric for expression. 2 or higher are required to pass. So I've met all of my requirements on the fluency side. Cold and hot timing scores expressed in a graph. Teacher evaluates the open-ended questions with the answer key built into the screen. You would have to, again, evaluate the retell based on your own requirements. And then this review work screen provides you with an overview of how the student performed in each of the steps, as well as overall for the criteria for passing. This can be printed or emailed home to parents. You can view their fluency scores for this level, their comprehension scores, and as you can see, each of the quiz questions is identified by their skill and number of words used in retell. Because the student did not pass their quiz, you can have them go back and redo missed quiz questions.
Click the best answer and then click Next. Congratulations! You passed this story. Click Done to finish.
So they see the certificate, and now they can
Please select a story.
move to the next story in the level. So again, all of our sequence series, all of our idiom series work exactly the same way. The Phonics series is slightly different in that there's not a vocabulary lesson in the keyword step. Instead, there's a phonics lesson. And instead of a retell, there is a word list. Those are the primary differences there. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, for the pass section, or would we be able to, if the student is logged in on their computer and they've been moving through the sections up until that point, could we log in on our computer simultaneously as them to pass them? Or would that like kick them out of their session or anything?
So that's a great question, and I'm going to demonstrate that for you. There's a short answer and a long answer.
Okay.
Not really a long answer, but a more in-depth answer. So let's say they've notified you that they are ready to pass. You would go to Read Naturally Live screen. So here's a student ready to pass, Jeff. As soon as, if Jeff is logged in now, and I click on Login, that will take me into his session. That will take me into his session, and as of our current version, it will in fact kick him out. So what you would need to do is share your screen, as I am doing now, with your student, and then you would click on Conduct Pass Activities and go through that whole process as if you were him, but also with you running through the teacher login as well, if that makes sense. So basically you're playing both roles while sharing your screen. The more in-depth answer is that sometime later this year, I think in November, at least that's the plan, you will both be able to be logged in at the same time. So we are working on an enhancement of this feature, but for now it does involve, oh, you can't really see what I'm doing, can you?
We can hear it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it makes sense still.
Okay, sorry about that. It only shares one tab at a time. So what happened is it opened a new tab with Jeff's story. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. If you don't mind, I'm going to kind of move on to my, do we have a hard stop?
I think we have a hard stop at 12:30, which we have
Few
maybe
minutes.
just a few minutes.
Okay, let me run through a couple things before I let you go. What do you see on your screen? My PowerPoint?
The poster, the
Okay,
student.
great. Okay. So I'm going to send you actually just a link to this information. We have a very detailed knowledge base set of articles for doing things like setting up parents as assistants, using Google Meet to share screens, monitoring student progress, etc. But instead, what I want to just reiterate to you, since we just have a couple minutes here, because I talked about all of these things previously. And that is our Read Live help page,
Yes.
which is where you'll find videos, user guides, recorded webinars. And the main thing that I want to encourage you to do, if you have the time to do it, and you can do this kind of, in chunks, is we have an online course, a free online course that would take about 3 hours to get through. But again, you can do it in chunks, and it will guide you through A to Z within Read Naturally Live. And we're working on another one on Word Warm-Ups Live that will be available hopefully within the next couple months. So please access the Read Live help page. You can get there by going to...
and do you have a second to just show them where it actually is?
Yeah.
That'd be great. This is going to be, I find it so useful. It's so, everything is there.
Yeah.
Ben, do you ever, just as a side note while you're finding it, do you ever throw anything back on the green screen? Like, I feel like all of a sudden we're going to see SpongeBob or something back there.
I do, but I don't know how to do that in Google Meet. I usually use Zoom.
Oh,
for that
gotcha.
purpose.
We've been told we're not allowed to use Zoom, so I'm following the district guidelines.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm not used to using Meet, and so I'm a little bit more fumbly on this.
No worries.
Okay, so here it is. So it's readnaturally.com and then read-live-help. Are you seeing that right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So on the left side, you'll see a series of video links, which are also out on YouTube, FYI. Just look for Read Naturally on YouTube. And then on the right side are broken down into the different sections for the different programs, Read Live, Read Naturally Live, and Word Warm-Ups Live. Recorded webinars, job aids, the online course under Read Naturally Live, recorded webinars, the Student's Guide to Read Naturally Live. Those are the videos that I mentioned earlier for students. We're adding one for parents who want to be assistants as well, etc. So this is the page that you want to go to, not only because it's so comprehensive, but also because we're constantly adding new stuff on there. So as new features and questions come up from teachers, we add those into this set of resources. So this is really going to be the most valuable thing for you as you get started. And of course, feel free to email me at any time with any questions. So I know that's a lot to digest in an hour, and I know you have a lot of other things to do, but again, I just want to reiterate that I'm here to help, and I've got your back. So